and we're talking about race, and then the idea of women come up. And I'm sitting there going, well, shit, I'm a woman. Like, so I can't separate the two because I come in both packages. So that is really hard for me when that gets brought into the conversation surrounding history and representation and all of that. And I mean, and this happens not just in spaces where I'm talking about art, but if I'm doing a talk on cultural studies or something like that, and you know, well, you know, it's like me being a woman. I'm thinking, what am I, a kangaroo? Like, but this is where I challenge us to think outside of ourselves and our own lens, because these comments are not always meant to be sort of, well, it comes across a little exclusive.
I believe Faith Gold was asked which was harder to be black or a woman, and I think she said it was harder for her to be a woman.
Well, that's Faith. That's Faith.
Do you know Faith? Some of us know Faith.
Right.
Faith is something else. I like Faith. She tells it like it is. Someone else has a question? I couldn't see.
I think since last year, sorry, last year Columbia put a show about black models.
Yes.
And then that show was really well received because it traveled all over the world. These people were masters painting black models. What do you think? What was your opinion about it?
Well, you know, what I have learned throughout my studies, that oftentimes black models sat for artists, right? And so we didn't always know the person that sat was black. And so that show kind of brought that to the forefront. So there are all of these spaces where we've been hidden. But again, because of globalization and this thing called the internet and all of these ways that we're communicating, all of this stuff is coming out now. Yeah, so I think a show like that in particular was especially important because again, it gave visibility to brown bodies, you know, which is really important to me in my work. It's like this idea of visibility, this idea of representation. But I just want to go back for a moment to this idea of abstraction versus realism. When I came into myself and decided I would go back to being an artist, I was doing very representational work. And at the time I was doing work that was expected of me. I thought I was supposed to paint a certain way and do a certain kind of work because of how I thought at the time the world defined me. But that was very immature and naive of me because I didn't understand my place in the world. I didn't understand who I was, and I didn't understand who I was really against historical context in terms of art. So I painted this very representational stuff. It was technically good, and it was skillfully good, but I had no way of contextualizing it. That's where the problem came in. Now, if I were to bring this work out now, I can contextualize it differently because of my maturity. And my maturity in terms of how I see the world and how I ingest things. So I can contextualize this work a lot differently. So I got this advice from someone, and he came in and he was like, well, it's clear you can paint. You're probably a better painter than I am, but why are you painting this shit? And, you know, after, you know, I cried a little bit and pulled myself together, then I went straight into my Bronx girl, oh no, he didn't, you know. But honestly speaking, listening to that message, he was right. I painted my first abstract piece, and I called him up and I was like, there's paint on a canvas, I don't know what this is, but it's done. Prior to that, my only experience with abstract expressionist work was Debbie Brightman at the museum.
But I gotta interject, what you're sharing is also what they went through. That's why we have so many art movements in Europe, where various people rejected what they were taught. They were taught to just do this classical style, And then they said, you know, I don't wanna do that. That's how Impressionism began, where they were experimenting with these little tiny brush strokes. And then they started doing it outdoors. And then after a while, they said, well, let's not do it outdoors. Maybe it's too cold. Then they started to come
Well,
inside.
I think the fundamental difference in that though, there were movements in schools, right? So, those movements in schools were not, rooted in, race. They were not at that particular time. So, so,
I know what you're getting to, but what I'm trying to say, showing the similarities, is that, and I think that is the problem. The problem is sometimes when we call things masters or classical, we're basically defining it to be this perfect period where everything was wonderful and there was no struggles, there were no challenges. That's a lie. And I think that's why when artists of color try to interject their experiences, they're having problems, because the world is saying, well, you go through this, but they didn't go through that, and it's not the truth. All humans go through things, and if we don't start acknowledging those periods, those struggles, show the commonalities, then we're always gonna have these separations. And I'm trying to bridge, me personally as a curator, the fact that we are human and we have a lot more in context. So I'm agreeing with you.
no, I
With
think that
the
you're
racial-
racial, but I think that for me, it's often important to make some distinctions. That's all I'm
Okay.
saying.
No, that's cool too. I just feel that it should be this fluid conversation. Yes, you have a question?
Well, I don't really have a question, but I'm just happy that I'm at a talk where all of this is being discussed. And I think what I felt when I walked in was a sense of home. I felt like there was spirit in this place that came from a lot of different ways of getting here. And I don't know a lot about art, but I do know a lot about feeling. I feel good in this space because I feel like I know these people. I feel like I've seen these women, even that one up there. I saw her when I was living with my great-grandmother in Georgia. But that's not from Georgia. That's from France or somewhere I've never been, but yet and still I know that woman. I know that soul. And did she know she was going to be a work of art? Did she know that one day we were going to be sitting here looking at her, and all she was doing was going home or going somewhere? So I just feel good that this type of discussion in this place brings people closer to being themselves.
Thank you so very, very much.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and,
Very much.
this being the first day of Black History Month is not lost on me. Every day is Black History for me, but, February I act up because it's Black History Month. So, it's not lost on me that we're here discussing this, and it's also not lost on me that, here we are in a gallery that's been around for 40 years, and the interesting part of this conversation is not that we're discussing masters, but that two Black artists are discussing European masters. Just something for y'all to think about. That's what's interesting about this, right? Because with this, people discuss masters every day. But why, and is that, that's something to ponder. Why is this interesting? Why is this not something that should happen? Speaking to that.
We're about to wrap up. Does anyone have any
We're gonna just-
last questions before we end?
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
Speaking to that, in that idea, and thank you for your words, because that's, I think, the impetus behind wanting to be an artist. If it's a line, it's someone who doesn't know art, who is not doesn't know these artists that we're talking about, these dates, these periods, these times, these movements, to come in and just feel it. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And to speak to what we've learned is, as two African American artists, so-called, one male, one female, and all those specifics that go into wanting to maintain doing your work, then we know about Edmani and Lewis. We actually go even further, because we know we have two worlds. We do live in these two worlds. We live in this Western European world, learning this academic art, but then to have Palmer Hayden, Henry Oswatana, that informed Basquiat, Kehinde Wiley, Kara Walker. And it just opens up this wide conversation that we all can have, which is what you're saying, that was eloquent, and it's correct. It opens up this larger conversation that we can have, that then we can start to go into something and think about transcending things.
Well, with
That's all I have
that
to
note,
say.
I just want to thank you all for coming this morning, on a rainy morning, and please feel free to go to both floors. Now, at the end of the counter, there are the booklets and maps, because this weekend still is master's drawings, so you can visit some of the other locations in the area as well. So thank you all so very, very much.